Hi there, this video is going to show you a little bit about TERA's combat system. Now, TERA Online is an MMORPG which tries to focus specifically on action combat as a feature. This means that you start off at level 1 with your basic attack and usually some manner in which to dodge, block, or avoid abilities that mobs are using on you. And you can start off from the get-go, making sure that you avoid damage as much as possible. Obviously, at the start, mobs are more forgiving. You can sit there and take damage if all you want to do is hit one, and that's fine. However, as you fight mobs, you're incentivized to actually look at what abilities they're using and what they tend to do, how often they do it, and so on, and just avoid the damage that they do completely. Typically, a mob will rear back and shove in front of it or smash the ground in front of it and so on, and you can use your dodges to just get out of the way and use your attack to deal damage to it. This means, of course, that even starting from level 1, your fighting experience is a little bit more interesting than going up to a monster and pressing 1 to auto attack or pressing 1 to hit the same ability more than once. Timing your dodges means that you will avoid the damage completely. If you don't time it, you will take damage, and that's fine. At the start, no big deal, but the more you avoid, the less damage you take, and the faster you can quest. The more you don't have to worry about healing or doing anything like that. The other thing to note is that your abilities will in some manner tend to combo together. So for example, if you are a warrior, slayer, berserker, that sort of class, then your combo attack tends to do an extra effect on every third or fourth attack. And, you know, this could be sweeping around in a cone, or sweeping targets in front of you, and so on. Monsters themselves, they start off having these special abilities. Usually they tend to indicate how they do their special ability. In some cases they'll rear back, obviously. In some cases a monster will typically get a green flash around the eye and then do a special charge or some sort of attack. So if you missed it in that particular fight, I'll show it again in slow motion, and you'll see the red glint that comes up on the monster's eyes. That means it's going to do its bucking attack, basically, that goes forward. And as long as you're out of the way completely, you will not be hit by it. And typically when monsters do this sort of a thing, they tend to give you a window in which you can attack them or use abilities and chain on your skill combos, basically. And yeah, so one thing to note here is that the more you avoid, the less hit points you take, and you will start getting skills that fairly early on that chain together. So for example, at level 2 as a slayer, you get your whirlwind immediately. So it means you have a basic attack that swings in front of you, you have a whirlwind that will kill mobs, and you have a dodge which moves you around the area. You can use this to make sure that you time your attacks or position your attacks properly. Now obviously with an attack like whirlwind, you know, you're better off letting mobs actually get into a cone around you, and with the ability that with an ability that needs charging, you obviously want to time it properly so that you make sure that you damage as many mobs as possible and you take as little damage as possible as well. One thing to also note here is that you might be thinking at this point, well, this is all nice and fancy, but why do I need to actually dodge this stuff? They're not doing much damage. Look at them. They're hitting for 6, 5. I have 1,000 health. Why do I need to dodge? Well, if you fail to dodge, this is at the early levels, so it's a lot more forgiving. What starts happening is that if you don't dodge attacks, you get knocked down, and you're unable to move or do anything until you get back up. Later on, this will be more meaningful because the mobs will do more meaningful damage, and if you're continually getting yourself knocked down, then you can't do anything, and the monsters are going to kill you. The corollary effect to this is that as long as you dodge abilities as well as possible, you can solo things that you're not particularly meant to solo. With mission mobs, for example, they are intended to be soloed by the typical player. So as long as you dodge or block an ability that it uses, you will have no problem soloing it whatsoever. They just have a little bit more health, so it might take 10 seconds. However, if you don't dodge their special abilities, as you can see, 445 damage is a fair chunk of your health. So if you continue being hit by these over and over again, then, you know, you're going to run out of health fairly fast. So you are incentivized from early on to just get out of the way and make sure that you use your combos. The other thing is that a monster that charges an attack, or in some manner, tends to give you a bit of a window in which to chain your attacks afterwards. That way, you're not actually you can use your abilities freely. But as long as you dodge the main ability, then you know you're not sitting there constantly dodging too often. Your dodge or block or whatever has a fairly short cooldown, or in the case of a Berserker Lancer, you can block whenever you want. You can hold down block if you want to for an infinite time, but obviously doing that means you can never attack, so that's not interesting. And when you're fighting mobs, you know, it's a little bit more involved in terms of fighting a new monster type, because your first few monsters that you killed, you are still finding out what abilities they do and how you can avoid them, how best to avoid them. And as you fight, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th monster, you know what to do, you know what to expect, so you can get out of the way and just take no damage whatsoever. In a similar manner, typically around level 4, 5, 6, you start. Most of the monsters tend to come with packs of minions, and these minions are fairly easy to take out, and basically as long as you just avoid the damages done. Now even these minions can knock you down. Knockdown is a chance that can happen, and it's based on several stats that exist that you can get, that you can improve, and you can improve your chance to knock down monsters based on your damage and so on. And so you can make sure that you use this to the best of your advantage. Some abilities, for example, Knockdown Strike for Slayers, which you learn at level 4, they have a higher chance of knocking it down. Mind you, the tooltip for Knockdown Strike seems to imply that it will always happen, but from my experience, it increases the chance greatly. But this means that obviously some monsters are easier to knock down than others. Some monsters, like the Disc Reapers, they have a bit of an immunity, as it were, to being knocked down, and this effect comes into play later on, especially with dungeons and stuff like that. Now, even dungeon monsters and bosses can be knocked down or weakened in some manner, and so abilities and skills, you end up getting specific abilities that you know, work off monsters being knocked down, and so you can use that even on bosses. So it's not like you have a bunch of abilities that, you know, you basically never touch, like aside from soloing. The other thing to know is that because all of your abilities are in some manner active and swinging, effects like, say, Headlong Rush, which is a charge that also increases your attack speed, means that you can combo this with your other abilities so that you can swing those faster. Obviously, if you have passive attack speed, it means you're swinging faster constantly, but Headlong Rush works for one ability, so even if you need to use it in the middle of combat to just make something happen at a specific time, you can do that. You can also, obviously, in combat though, the time it takes for you to actually charge means that you're kind of offsetting the actual that time with the time you save, but you know, in some cases it can help out, in some cases it won't, but it's a good thing to note that it means you will knock down strike faster, or charge up your whirlwind, or your berserker smash faster, and so on. Now, because all of your abilities are in some manner actively aimed at your cursor, so you can miss your charges, you can miss your swings, you can miss your knockdowns, and so on. Typically, if your cursor is pointing at the monster directly as much as possible, you will still hit the monster. Those are some of the basics of combat in TERA, especially at the early levels. Thank you.